Displacement is a very cool feature in 3D graphics. With just a texture, you can add detail to a mesh without necessarily having to model it in, and unlike normal and bump maps, displacement, or height maps, actually add geometry. It's also much more performant since you can disable this detail until you render. Like most 3D packages, Blender supports displacement, but in a couple very different ways. The most commonly used is pretty easy. Turn on displacement for your shader, add a displacement node, plug in your height map, and boom, detail. Unfortunately, this method only works in cycles and usually requires enabling experimental features. If you're going for a more stylized look in your work, you're likely using Eevee, which does not support this type of displacement. Luckily, Eevee has its own method, and while it does take a bit to set up, it works just about the same. First, you need an unwrapped model. I'll be using Suzanne here, which I've already unwrapped manually. Assign a material and a base color texture. I'm using textures from this blocky cliffs material I got at textures.com. Link is in the description. Next, go to the Object Data Properties and expand the UV Maps panel. Here you can see the model's default UV map listed, appropriately named UV Map. Since we'll be using the UV map to control the translation of our height map, we'll add a new one and name it Displace, or something you can remember. The camera button next to them controls which UV map will be used for rendering, so leave it on the default one. Go to the Modifiers tab and add a UV Warp modifier. This will control the displacement's translation, so assign our new Displace UV map to the UV layer field. Assign your model to Object From, add an empty, I'll use these axis arrows, and assign that to Object To. This will allow us to translate the displacement by moving the empty. Oh, and don't forget to enable In Front under Viewport Display in the Empty's Object Properties tab. That way we'll always be able to see it no matter where it is. Now, because Eevee can't, or at least currently can't, use height maps in the shader editor, go to the Texture Properties tab and add a new brush texture. I'll name mine Height Map. Leave the type on the default image or movie and import your material's height map. While the rest of your texture's scales and locations will be controlled through a mapping node, you can control the height map scale here under Mapping and Crop. Adjust the float values for maximum X and Y to adjust the scale of your texture on those axes. For best results, they should match the same scale values used in your material's mapping node. Next, add a subdivision surface modifier and crank up the levels. This will give the model more definition for the displacement to work with. Suzanne always looks better with Catmull Clark, but if you already have a finished model, just set the subdiv method to simple. I typically set render to about 5, or at least enough until the level of detail doesn't matter anymore. You can adjust these later, but keep the viewport level lower than render so you don't crash Blender. Finally, we add the Displace modifier, which appears to inflate the model like a balloon. We can fix that by assigning the height texture we made earlier. Set the coordinates to UV and assign the Displace UV map from the beginning. This, combined with the UV Warp modifier, lets us control the position of the displacement, with strength and mid-level adjusting its intensity. Suzanne obviously wasn't designed for this material, so I'll better demonstrate it on a plane. I'll quickly give it a Displace UV map, create the same modifier stack, assign the material, and Oh, there we go. Much better. And it works exactly the same. We can make this even easier by parenting the empty to the model so we can move it around without automatically adjusting the displacement. You can turn up the subdivision levels to get a better idea of what this should look like. I'll also add the material's roughness and normal maps for good measure. Now that's what I'm talking about. This method may not be as clean as Cycles, but it gets the job done and works with NPR shaders. Alternatively, you can check out Ben's method for real-time shader displacement as shown by Curtis Holt in his video here. Be warned though, it can get rather performance heavy. Links to the video and Gumroad download are both in the description. Oh, I just remembered, I've had Suzanne hidden this whole time. I wonder how she's doing. Whoa! Oh.